9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from Swansea, this is the Twilight Show with Nathan Gynn.
Borodar Pal, Croeso I Abertawe. Hello everyone, welcome to Swansea, Twilight Show with me, Nathan Gynn on Teachers Talk Radio. Tonight we are talking trauma-informed classroom design. We're joined by Headteacher Dr Clare Campbell, who's redesigning her school spaces to be trauma-informed, and Shahan Knight, creator of the therapeutic classrooms approach. What's in, what's out, what best supports our vulnerable learners. Off we go.
Live from Swansea, this is the Twilight Show with Nathan Gynn on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Borodar Pal, Croeso I Abertawe. Hello everyone, welcome to Swansea, welcome to the Twilight Show with me, Nathan Gynn, on Teachers Talk Radio. Now, I did say in the introduction now that I think I put too many words in to fit it all in at the time. We're talking about trauma-informed classroom design. Now, I see we've got a caller on the line already, so I'm just going to check in and find out which of our guests it is. Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, it's Claire.
Oh, hi. You know, sometimes I say this all the time to people who are listening back, they don't get to see the live studio if they're not in Podbean. When they're listening to it back as a podcast, they get a bit confused at this point because sometimes it generates automatic usernames. And so I do get like a little bit, you have to check in. So welcome to Teachers Talk Radio, Claire.
Oh, thank you. It's nice
Um,
to
and
be
I
here.
and I did say in the introduction there, we're going to be talking about trauma-informed classroom spaces, I guess, is the best way to do it. And we're hoping maybe that we might have someone else joining us as well.
Yes, fantastic, Shahana.
Yep. So, as I said in the introduction there, from TPC Therapy, creator of the therapeutic classrooms approach, and we will whiz through. But while we're getting sort of settled and started into it, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what it is you do?
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm the head teacher of St Charles Primary School in Salford, and I've been head there for about 10 years now. I've been a teacher for 22 years, head for 15 of those years, and my doctorate is in art therapy, my master's is in special educational needs. So I feel like the trauma-informed stuff is just really combines kind of all my skill set, and I've been enjoying transforming our classrooms into therapeutic classrooms.
Okay, and you've talked about an amazing career there so far, but over a period of time, while we're talking about it, what were classrooms like when you first, in your NQT or when you first started teaching? Have they changed much?
Yeah, but do you know what? They've not changed that much. So, um, I think if you do what you always did, you get what you always got. So I still see the same things that I used to see 22 years ago when I started teaching in classrooms, and I just don't understand why. So things like children's trays. I mean, every single primary classroom has got a bed of children's trays in it, right?
Yeah.
But why? When you
Oh,
look inside them, what have they got in them? There's like maybe a few worksheets, a half-eaten sandwich, maybe a conker, a stone. Our children, they don't really need them. They don't really use them for anything. And actually, once we removed all of the unnecessary furniture, the filing cabinets, things that aren't to do with children from our classrooms, we actually just found we had so much more space. Um,
yeah, and I guess we'll talk about that, maybe a little bit later on about
mm,
what's in a classroom. This word, it's always been done that way, or and also some of the other bits and pieces around cost, because I always
yeah.
do. I remember, being left many times with a classroom, and the furniture was the furniture because that was the furniture. We couldn't afford any
Yeah.
more furniture. So we'll talk about that a little bit
Mm,
later for people listening. Now, the other bit that I wanted to kind of get out of the way at the start is we have said trauma-informed
mhm.
classrooms a little bit, and it is a word that gets used a lot. I don't want to necessarily label it a buzzword, but certainly we hear it a lot more days. So maybe what is your take on it? If we kind of, what do you mean when we start talking trauma informed?
Yeah, so basically, since the pandemic, I think all of our children coming back to school who were in lockdown, or they might have had like stressful situations if their parents were out of work, or they might have lost loved ones. There's certainly a lot of bereavement. I mean, my particular school, we've had 12 of our children have lost loved ones, and 7 of our staff, including myself, have lost loved ones to
Wow.
COVID. So I think it's a period like the whole country is coming out of trauma. And actually, when you go through trauma, and I went through childhood trauma myself, you have all your choices taken away from you. So if you're bereaved young, like my mum died when I was in reception class. So yeah, if you're bereaved young, then you are traumatized and you have all your choices taken away from you. So I feel that trauma-informed learning and certainly therapeutic classrooms, what they try to do is to give the child their choices back every lesson and every day. And so to me, that's what trauma-informed is about. It's about reflecting children's trauma and actually doing something about it, not just ignoring it and ploughing on with the same old furniture, the same old classroom layout, the same old classroom management that we used to have. Because actually, coming back from COVID, we need something different. It's time for a change and a shift in education.
Yeah, and I think it's probably very hard for people as well to, you know, not only talk about these things, and I would relate to some of the changes that have happened. That I went to an open evening for one of my children who's in year one, and when I was there, I realised that I hadn't actually spoken to the class teacher yet about some of the things that have happened, sort of in our
Mhm.
lives through COVID and such like. That probably are, well, almost certainly, I think most people would say, will have an effect on him, or
Yeah.
certainly. So, it's very easy for us in all situations, I guess, to say, oh, these schools need to do trauma informed, or this type of area, there's lots of trauma. But, how do you see that? Are you an area of high deprivation, or is it despite that you're taking this approach?
Yeah, our school is a bit of a school of two halves. So we do have some children who live in like nice houses, nice
Yeah.
leafy kind of suburb. But the other half, we serve quite a large council estate, and there's a very increasing number of children who are on free school meals, who are looked after, who are on the special needs register. We have really high numbers of SEN children. Um, and for some SEN children, the classroom isn't multisensory. It's not set up to support them the way that a cozy home environment was. And some of our special needs children actually thrived during lockdown because they were given that individual one-to-one attention if the parents, were maybe furloughed and had the time. And actually, they often have, their bedrooms are kind of trauma-informed bedrooms. They might have tactile, sheets. They might have tactile rugs on the floor. They might have low lighting. They might have comfortable places to sit, comfortable places to work. And yet we put them back into our classrooms, and they're very institutional. There's, uncomfortable plastic chairs, uncomfortable rectangular tables that are on adjustable heights, and I really feel like it's time to actually think about what the children need and create a home from home. And some of our children, I did a lot of home visits during COVID, obviously dropping off food parcels for families, dropping off work packs for children. And so I saw firsthand the difference in our children's homes. So, I was dropping off to some nice, lovely houses, 3-bedroom houses, whatever. And then I was also dropping off to multiple children in tiny flats and, crammed in with no outdoor space. So the lockdown was very different for our community. And coming back into school, it's about trying to create a home from home in our classrooms, but actually we know that some of our children don't experience a kind of the space in their home. So if they've got, a lot of people living under one roof, they might not experience that sitting down at a dining table to chat. So what we wanted to do was introduce places in our classrooms where we could have dining tables, we could have, independent individual tables with low lighting and tactile materials, rugs and throws and pillows, so that children can choose where they want to go and where they feel comfortable and where they feel safe, because we want the classroom to feel like a safe and secure space for them.
And when I think about some of the pictures that I have seen of some of the classrooms designed this way and some of your own classrooms, what really struck me was that the different spaces within it. I really, that was something that kind of took to me that, yeah, you're right. Actually, we're the uniformality of education sometimes, where it is everyone in the same size chair, the same color chair, at the same
Mm-hmm.
size tables. That kind of struck me that might not work for everyone. Now, when we this is the hardest part, I guess, of you. We've got kind of a little bit of an idea about yourself now, and where you're coming from. But can you try for us to sort of describe your school, what it is you're aiming for? If I'm a visitor sort of walking into the front doors, what's catching my eye, what's drawing my attention, what are you hoping sort of as I tour the school?
So what I really want you to see is happy children working purposefully and enjoying their learning. And we're a Catholic school, so obviously we really celebrate our faith. So we'd expect you to see worship spaces. We'd expect it to be very welcoming. Um, but yeah, comfortable and kind of a home from home. That's what we're aiming towards, is creating a secure feeling of home. And I certainly know, I studied, I continue to study, I'm a constantly learning, I'm a lifelong learner. And I know that sometimes I'll want to just sit on my sofa and study, or with my laptop on my knee, or sometimes I'll want to, sit on the bed. I might want to sit at the dining table, spread my things out. And actually, children need to know that that's okay too, and they can choose where they want to sit, and they can choose how they want to learn, and which lesson it might be. They might be more distracted, so they might want to sit in and face the window, because we're very fortunate to have a lovely garden, a lovely forest school space that our classrooms look out onto. So for children who are quite easily distracted, it might be that they want to focus on the outside. They don't want to look kind of facing into the classroom. Might want to face out of the classroom, um, and actually it's about learners taking responsibility and knowing themselves and knowing where I will learn best in this particular lesson. And like I said before, it's all about those choices, giving them their choices back.
Yeah, I find it really interesting, this kind of sort of shift, the pupil voice, I guess it's sometimes called, or sort of child-led learning, or child's choice. Um, I'm skating all over sort of different questions at the moment as they pop to my head, and I know I did kind of give you a rough idea, but was this a big change for you when you started doing this? Was it sort of a sudden movement? Had you been creeping this way for a while as a school, and then sort of took the plunge, or was it a kind of moment of clarity and realization?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, we have always responded to what our children need. And actually, a few years ago, when I was a new head at the school, we did our first exclusion, which was absolutely heartbreaking, because you never ever want to exclude a child. And the reason behind that was because there was a massive waiting list for bereavement services. And the child was, really struggling with a bereavement that had happened. And we could not get, we were banging on the door of the council, we were banging on the door of the services, and we couldn't get what we needed. And it ended up with kind of coming to a head. And the only route we could see was exclusion. And I swore to myself at that time, I was like, I never want this to happen again. So, and because we weren't getting what we needed, we had to kind of put the provision in ourselves. So what I did was I employed an art therapist, part-time art therapist, and we created an art therapy studio to work with particularly children who are at risk of exclusion. So that's been open since 2014, and it's been really successful. We've had probably over about 130 children through our doors from 16 different primaries and 5 different high schools they refer in, and none of these children, like none of the 130 children, have been excluded. So they come to work in the art therapy studio with the art therapist for an hour a week, and they stay all year, and sometimes they're re-referred for a second year, and it's just whatever they need. So we've always been quite responsive to what the children need, but I think this trauma informed and the therapeutic classrooms came about when I went to a heads conference, and at heads conferences, you always get the kind of same trade stands. So you've got your health and safety stands and your children's resources and your book stands. But actually, there was one stand that really caught my eye, and it was Shahan Knight from TPC Therapy. And Shahana's stall had just a video of the most beautiful classroom that I'd ever seen. And she started talking to me about how she was a play therapist and she managed a mental health service, and she was using her expertise to redesign and transform classrooms. And it really caught my eye. And so obviously I took her number, and I wanted to go and see firsthand. I wanted to go and see for myself where this classroom was, what it looked like, how it worked. So I took my year 6 teacher, because we knew we wanted to start with year 6 and kind of cascade that down throughout the school. So I took my year 6 teacher with me to Shevington Vale, and we met Shahana there and the head teacher, Andy Horton. And again, we were just blown away by how amazing it looked and how the children had responded so well to it.
And how did the teachers respond? Because one of the things I've often heard, and in some approaches, I put some of these elements into my own work, is that it takes maybe a slight leap. Has it changed the way they teach? Has it changed the way
Yeah,
they approach things?
it's it is a bit of a leap, because it's very different. It's not your bog standard classroom that you'd see up and down the country with like displays on the wall. There are no displays, and I'm an artist, and I was really shocked to hear that there were no displays. But actually, there's still art. There's plenty of art that goes on. It's just in children's sketchbooks, or it's framed and it's on the wall. Because the theory behind it is, if you wouldn't have it in your house, don't have it in your classroom. We're creating a home from home. So, and I've used working walls for years and years in education. And actually, why do we need them? Do children look at them? Are they useful? What we do is we do all the work that would go in a learning on a learning wall in the children's books, so the children use their books as a resource more, and a lot of it just becomes wallpaper, and they can look scruffy, displays need changing. And actually, my teachers have responded to it really well, because it cuts their workload, because they're not constantly changing displays or changing learning walls and things like that. And we've not missed them. I really thought we'd missed them, but we haven't. And we still have a beautiful school hall where there's tons of children's work. So children's work is on display everywhere in our school, just not in the classroom.
And saved a lot of money on backing paper and borders, I
Oh, of
imagine.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
And we what we do have is framed photo walls. So
Oh,
each
wow.
child is represented. They've got black and white photos and black and white clip frames. Are really cheap, simple to get from IKEA, but they look great. And the children have got ownership of the space. As I said, we're a Catholic school, so it was really important for us to have, we have class altars, so obviously we still have those. But it's, rather than have loads of clashing colours, we just pick a really simple colour palette and stick to it. And actually, for our children with autism, or children with ADHD, children with who have lots of SEN difficulties that are maybe comorbid, it really helps lessen the distractions and helps them concentrate more on their learning, which is great.
So if I'm sort of stood in a classroom, then there's none of those sort of classic typical sort of displays of blue backing paper
Nope.
with none of that. Okay, so I'm looking around the walls, and are you still sort of using interactive whiteboards, projectors, and those things at the front of the
Yeah,
class? And
yeah, of course, we still need those for our lessons. But when they're
yeah,
not in use, we either have like a forest scene on there because we've gone for like a what we wanted to do is to bring the outdoors in because we know how calming it is for the children to be in the outdoors and how good it is for your mental health. So it's kind of tied in with a lot of our forest school work and our outdoor learning work. Um, so yeah, we'd have like a rainforest image, or we'd have, a waterfall or some meditation music or whatever, using the whiteboard for that. And obviously in the winter, it's coming to where as the weather's getting colder, we'd probably have like a roaring fire on the interactive whiteboard. So to create that home from home feel, but it's not always used, and we're all about sustainability and saving energy, so it's not always used. So sometimes it's just off, and actually it's you the furniture and the classroom doesn't prepare the children for the next steps in education. That's what the teacher does. That's what the teacher's for. So all of that learning is still going ahead, and when we went to visit Andy and his teacher in Shevington Vale, they did their year 3 classroom. It was just a normal lesson, but children were responding to where they wanted to sit, who they wanted to sit next to, making their own choices. And it creates more independent learners, which is lovely. And it's definitely got a calmer feel about it.
and now there may be teachers listening, head teachers or middle leaders listening. Um, how fortunate are you? Because we all are to different levels, fortunate or not, with our school premises and our school buildings. Were you already sort of off to a good start? Are you an old build, a new build, large windows? What's your school facilities like from that point of view?
Yeah, well, we're kind of we're almost like a bungalow. We're a one floor. We're a 60s build, so it's not
Yeah, yeah.
brilliant. Um, it's we are fortunate with some of our classrooms have like nice big windows, high ceilings. Some of our classrooms don't. So yeah, it kind of depends where you are in the layout of the school, really. So it's an interesting project. Kind of our plan is that this year each and every classroom will be trauma informed. That's what we want to be. We want to be the first kind of trauma informed mainstream school in the UK that's got therapeutic classrooms in every room. So, but obviously that's a big undertaking. So we're just at the very start. We've done our year 6 classroom. Our year 5 and year 4 are booked in to do in October half term. We're just doing the designs now with the children. Um, year 3 and 2 are being done in spring, and then year 1 and early years are being done next summer. So it's kind of a rolling program, really. But we are very fortunate with our outdoor space, which is really really lucky, I know. And but again, I kind of a few years ago, it's almost like the blinkers came off. And when I was a new head, and certainly when I was a class teacher, if you needed something for your playground, I would just go to the catalogues and open up the catalogues and think, all right, I need a trim trail, or I need playground markings, or I need a wooden, structure like a gazebo. But I worked with Shahan Knight, he runs 8 Space playgrounds, and I worked with him. He's actually was the designer for the playground at Chester Zoo, and it's very much his designs just work with nature and they work with the land, and you don't need like the standard playground markings. You don't need the trim tails, the manufactured stuff. Actually, just working with the land and nature. So he works with rocks and boulders and tree trunks, and we've created a beautiful forest school by just working with our land and digging out. We've got a big moat, so he dug out the moat, and all the kind of soil and hardcore that he dug out of the moat has created a big mound, and we've just planted thousands of wildflowers and willow dens and willow structures, and actually the natural structures are much more sustainable, much more environmentally friendly, and the children respond really well to nature.
Oh, it does. You have sold me on it. If I was in the area, my kids would be coming along to the next open evening. Now we have to pop for a little ad break, but when we come back, we'll get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty about kind of how you've achieved it, the really deep reasons behind it. So it should be only a couple of minutes. If you're okay, did you see how to mute yourself there, Claire?
I'll work it out. Thanks.
That's all right. There should be just a little button, and we will see you just on the other side of these ads.
Brilliant, thank you.
Hi, I'm Charlie Burley, the Teacher's Health Coach, and I want to talk to you about the first ever health and wellbeing event for educators, Rewriting Wellbeing. It's a full day dedicated to improving your health as a teacher through looking at your nutrition, movement, mindset, workload and wellbeing in school. You'll hear from our incredible lineup of speakers including Andrew Cowley, Jen Foster, Kimberly Wilson, Simon Bolger and many more. There'll be talks, workshops and time to network with like-minded colleagues. We'll look after you all day with brunch, lunch and all the refreshments. You'll get to meet our incredible speakers and our amazing team of ambassadors from the education space. It's a non-profit event with all proceeds going to the amazing education charity EdSupport. This isn't one to miss. I look forward to seeing you there on the 22nd of October at Headteacher Venues, St Paul's in London. You can search Rewriting Wellbeing on the Eventbrite website to find out more.
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more. Live from Swansea, this is the Twilight Show with Nathan Gynn on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Bore pawb, croeso I Abertawe. Hello everyone, welcome to Swansea and the Twilight Show on Teachers Talk Radio with me, Nathan Gynn, and I am joined tonight by Head Teacher Dr Clare Campbell. We've been talking about redesigning her school spaces to be trauma-informed. We spent a little bit of time getting to know each other and her school at the start of the show, but if you have missed that, do not worry, because you can find all of our shows on Spotify, on iTunes, on Amazon. You can even ask your Amazon speaker, or I guess this would work with any smart speaker, to say, Siri, whatever it is that you're calling it, play Teachers Talk Radio, and it will play the most recent episode. Or you can go to our website at ttradio.org and you can find the listen back page where you can type in anything into the search bar, for example trauma, and it will pull up all the shows with a link to that topic. Now, welcome back, Claire.
Hi, nice to be back.
Hey, welcome back. Now, we were talking a little bit about some of the things you've done, and the feeling I get, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is a lot of care that you have put into how your school looks, how it's designed, the outdoor areas. It seems like there is, you thought about it a lot as opposed to just taking the space. Is that something personal to you? Why is the design of the school so important?
Yeah, I suppose it is. It is a labour of love. It's where I go to work every day. It's where all my children go to school every day, and you just want it to be the absolute best place it can be inside and out. And like I say, we're really blessed with the nature. We're blessed with our outdoor space, and I'm all about the environment and teaching the children about caring for the environment, because they're going to grow up to be the consumers of the future. So it's really important that they recognize their impact on the planet and how the small things that they do can make a big difference. So I have a love of nature myself, and I love planting trees. So each year with the children at school, I've planted trees, and now I've been there 10 years now. So in my first year, we planted an orchard, like a fruit orchard just outside the year 5 and 6 classrooms. And now that, like, those trees are massive, they're really tall, and we grow all sorts of different kinds of fruit. And so every year we work with the Woodland Trust. We've also worked with City of Trees, and we were actually on BBC Spring Watch for doing some planting with the children. So every single child in my school has had an experience of planting a tree, and then that is going to be their legacy for years and years to come. So our forest school just keeps getting better and better every year that the trees grow.
And do you see that as being sort of part of the trauma-informed approach that you're taking, that sort of connection
Absolutely,
with
yeah.
nature?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we know that being outdoors is really good for our mental health. We know that physical activity is really good for our mental health. So, for our children who were cooped up all that time during lockdown and they couldn't go out, or they could just kind of go for one walk a day with their family, it's massive. We have children who now prefer to be on devices than actually go and play outdoors, and I want to give them every opportunity to be outside and enjoy nature and explore nature. So we have a Laudato Si, that's the Pope's encyclical about the environment. We have an eco team, our Laudato Si eco team, and the work that they do on caring for the planet, caring for the environment, caring for each other, and our making our school environment and our community as beautiful as it can be. It's really important work. Litter picking, just even something as simple as litter picking, but not just only our school grounds, but actually around our local area, so the streets around our local school. It just makes it a nicer place for everybody, because we know the damage that litter can do to our environment. We see what happens when litter gets into our waters and our seas, and we see the damage that it causes to nature. So children need to learn how to be responsible for that, and how to help. It's about kindness, really, I guess.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I find it's rewarding. I don't know. I've recently started myself. I saw a sign. I live near the beach. I'm always at the beach, but I saw a sign saying 2 minute litter pick on the beach, and I've started doing that, and I don't know, some sort of pleasure receptors are going off in my head that I feel
Yeah,
I'm doing
absolutely.
something good. I'm
Yeah.
taking ownership of it. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the kind of things you can do is to do something for somebody else with absolutely no expectation of return. Being altruistic and teaching our children to be altruistic. It's a great thing. It's not just about formal education and maths, English, standards all the time. It's about teaching them how to be good humans and how to be good citizens. And yeah, it starts young. So
Yeah. Now I want you to take us back inside and
okay.
into a classroom, and I'm going to describe. You can maybe, and this is the unfortunate side of radio is that it's just us painting a picture with our words. But I'm going to describe my classroom back when I was a primary school teacher. Sort of. A while ago now. I won't give exact numbers. But I am in a 60s build, flat roof, uh, one level building, and I've come into my classroom, and my classroom has maybe 6 display boards, and obviously a projector, interactive whiteboard at the front, and I have very much tables all the same size, some chairs, and this is what most primary teachers I think would probably recognise. The odd one chair that's the wrong colour that frustrates everyone, um, and I have those low drawer units, probably about 6 or 7 or 8 of those
Mhm.
around the outside, and that would be my classroom.
Yeah, that's
Now,
totally
what is the
normal.
change and what is the steps that you are taking? If we can really get into the kind of nitty gritty, because I think people maybe won't recognise quite how
Mm.
it's all. I'm saying it's quite an extreme
It
change
is
in some
extreme.
senses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's extreme, and some people won't don't get it. But that's okay. I'm here to change. I'm here
So
to
it's
change the world one classroom
yeah.
at a time.
So it's not just a matter of me, having some Hessian backing instead.
No,
What
no.
what am I going to be doing to my classroom then? What would you be saying to me?
basically, well, what we did was we worked with Shahana. So Shahan Knight is the director at TPC Therapy, and she's the expert. She is the absolute expert. So she is a play therapist by trade. She's director of mental health service as well. So she works with children in care. She looked after children with severe special needs, and so she kind of helped us with our purchases for furniture. So the first thing we do is absolutely gut the classroom, take every stick of furniture out. Every stick of furniture, just empty it. And all
Wow.
the things that you think you need, like tray beds, filing cabinets, those little, uniform tables that are the same size for everybody, uniform plastic chairs, those uncomfortable plastic chairs that we've had for years in our school. It's time to change them. It's time to get rid of them. And because I really care about sustainability and the environment, we work with a charity called FEW, Furniture Education Worldwide, and they're a Burnley-based charity. So none of our furniture goes to landfill. It all is recycled, and few send containers out, shipping containers out to the Gambia, to Ethiopia, to schools. So we have linked schools in developing countries, and they've set up schools. They've built their own schools. They've set up schools, and it's really lovely to get photographs of our furniture in a classroom that's thousands of miles away. So, so can you still hear me?
Yep, sorry, I was just we've got another caller joining us, so I was just
Oh, it might be
connecting there.
Shahana. I
Hopefully,
told her
we'll
to call in.
just give her a couple of seconds to connect to see if we've got that call in. Sometimes it takes me a minute or two for those to come through. So you've taken everything out.
Every stick of furniture out, and you've taken everything off the walls, and you are starting with a blank canvas. So all our classrooms are painted white. So we have no colour on the walls, they're really bare. And then you start to introduce different types of seating. So we have round bistro style tables, we have high stools and high tables that are, so you've got kind of different levels that the children are sitting at. We have large dining tables that can seat 8 children, and all the chairs are really tactile, so they're all padded, they're all fabric, and actually the cost is really comparable with the kind of durable, uncomfortable plastic furniture that we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
We'd also have a low seating area. We'd have floor cushions and bookshelves, but it's about curating what is on your bookshelf. So not having those tatty books, having high quality books that the children are really going to enjoy, and weeding out all the things that are not nice, not nice to look at. We'd have lamps and low lighting, and not just those harsh kind of strip lights overhead. So it's about completely redesigning your idea of what a classroom looks like.
Wow. Now I think Shahana has joined us.
Yay!
Shahana, are you there?
I think so.
Yay!
You
Hi,
are. Yeah, we
Shahana.
can hear you. Yeah.
Hello, guys.
That's
Hi,
all right.
lovely to
If
hear
you could
from
be
you.
just maybe a touch closer to the microphone, if you can.
I actually don't know where the microphone actually is, to be honest.
That's
I think I'm...
whatever you're doing now is wonderful. So
Okay, great.
don't move. That's what I'd say. Now we've talked about you a little bit in the first part of the show, but do you want to introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, so I'm Shahan Knight. I am the director of a mental health service called TPC Therapy, and I am a childhood trauma specialist. So I do lots of different things, mainly training for schools and foster agencies and charities around mental health and trauma-informed approaches. And I do a lot of work in education. So part of that is helping to transform a whole school approach to really transform what schools should be, including environments and classrooms. And this year, well, November just gone, I transformed a classroom for one of the schools that was going through our award, and asked could I get my hands on it and completely transform it. He said yes, and the rest is history, really. It's kind of taken off.
Oh, fantastic. Now, can you tell us, this is a question we were kind of talking a little bit about earlier. Why do you think that the classroom space or the design of that classroom environment is important?
Oh, it's so important. I think the biggest thing is we have so many children coming into school now who are struggling with things externally. That might be trauma, it might be abuse, loss, domestic violence, but it might be things like struggling with large families or not really having a lot of income in the family. So struggling in terms of, having food on the table. It might be not knowing when bedtime is and things are really chaotic because parents work all the time, or there's so many scenarios. And when our children come into our school environments, our traditional classroom doesn't meet their needs. It's very bright, it's overwhelming. There's so many things going on in that room, backboards with clashing colours, things hanging all over the spaces, like washing lines and bits and bobs stuck around and laminated sheets. And actually, that's creating an environment where children not only can't learn and feel overwhelmed and anxious because of the space, but also don't feel emotionally safe. And I think alongside that, practically, a lot of the things in our classrooms don't work. I've spoken to hundreds of children, and those plastic chairs that we've had since I was at school and before that, so I'd peg 50 years, are still the same and they're uncomfortable. And, they cause children to swing on their chairs or fidget or sit on their knees, and then they get told off for it. So they're not designed with the children's mental health and well-being at the core of the room, and really they should be.
And I guess we were talking a little bit about those changes that have been made, and I have had a look at some of the classrooms you've shared as well. Can you sort of describe for us then, if it's not the classroom that I trained to teach in, it's not the
Mhm.
classroom maybe people remember or envision. How would you describe a classroom that as you would like to see it?
So, when you have a classroom space, your children are coming in every day to a room that should feel emotionally secure. And by that, I mean that when they come in, they feel calm, they feel safe, and the room and the design actually helps to calm their brain down. So, if they are anxious, or for some of our children who've experienced trauma, they might have such high stress levels that their brain's actually functioning in something called survival mode. So, they're very, very likely to go into fight, flight, freeze. So get quite angry quickly, run out the room if it's overwhelming, avoid things because it's tricky. And what we want to do is to create a room where actually just by its design, it's encompassing this idea that actually we can calm that brain down and we can get children out of survival brain into their rational thinking brain, which is where we want them to be when they're ready to learn. So the room should do that. And there's a number of things, and Claire, I just jumped in at the very end of you speaking, and some of those things that Claire said, that's the point of them. So soft lighting, let's turn off the strobe lights because the strobe lights are overwhelmingly bright. They can create dots in front of your eyes, and actually they're not conducive to an environment that feels cozy and safe. So if we include lamps, if we include lanterns and candles, fake ones, and fairy lights, and turn them on, suddenly you've got a mood that instantly calms the children down. Even in classrooms that don't do the full therapeutic classroom, they just add softer lighting. Similarly, let's get stuff off the boards. Let's take the boards down and be brave enough to say, well, actually, is this backboard purposeful? Can the children see it? Is it helpful to have maths up for, however long? And actually, is that more helpful for them? Or is it causing them to feel more stressed? And actually, when I sit down and speak to children, they do feel more stressed. So I want to see soft seating. I want to see dining tables you see in a living room. I want to see soft lighting. I want to see plants. I want to see frames of the children on the wall so they feel like they belong. And so every part of the therapeutic room is designed around the needs of the children, but it is very much a completely different vision to the standard classroom we see. And that comes with a little bit of resistance sometimes when I'm like, right, let's take backboards down. Let's get rid of these plastic chairs.
And I'll ask this sort of specifically to you, Shahana, because you're talking about the design there. Is there a consideration as you're sort of talking about those things about the pedagogy, the teaching strategies that people would use in these spaces, because obviously, what we would call chalk and talk, as it was at one point when you're stood at the front and you're delivering, that's a kind of
Yeah.
mass delivery system, like that's our education system. Do you talk to people about how that may need to change? Does it need to change?
I think there's two things there. I think, there's elements of the day where you need to teach the children and stand at a board and show them things. I think, but there also needs to be space within the room where the children can move around and for it to be a dynamic space that flows. So if you're doing something on the board, can the children sit on the floor, but not just all in rows like we see with on dots? I mean, can they lie on the floor on cushions? Can they be on the sofa at the back of the room? Can they be comfortably relaxed on something, an armchair? If that's the case, then that's great. I think it's about tweaking and changing, and it's not necessarily about how we deliver the teaching itself. I think it's more about the fact that the room needs to allow us to just be more mobile. So if a child is uncomfortable, they can get up and move to another seat if they wanted to, maybe not in a lesson, because we don't want kids moving about in a lesson. But after that lesson, they might say, can I actually go and sit over here because I'd feel more comfortable, or I need to lie on the floor? Fine, as long as they're engaged in their learning. So I think it's about being more flexible with our idea of what teaching is. And actually, physically, teachers have said to me, well, you know what? When I'm teaching at the front, the kids are so much more engaged. If they lay on the floor or whatever, it's great because they're listening. And then when they're moving around the space, the tables are higher, so the teachers aren't crouching down, they're not struggling to fit around a tiny table, and it just flows and feels far more inclusive for everyone, including the teacher.
Now, Claire, I wanted to go back to you for a second, just because you're a school leader. Times are tightening for a number of different reasons for schools. It feels like what we're talking about is a significant kind of capital investment. Is it as much as the panic buttons going off in my head are? Was this was this an expensive change, or was it not as much as I might think or people might think?
No, honestly, we were able to kit out our whole year six classroom for £2,500. And
Wow.
it's really, the cost of the furniture is really comparable with educational furniture. So if you were prepared, changing tables for like, or chairs like for like, the plastic chairs, it's kind of the price that you would pay anyway. So, but actually, what I've had to do, so I go to other schools and I deliver training, and I have generated this money for my school that wasn't in school budget. And we complete bids all the time, but I've never, in all the kind of years that I've been doing projects for the school, I've never let money stop me from kind of completing my vision. Of the money, you always find the money somewhere.
Yeah, and I imagine there may be people who are who aren't in purchasing at schools, or maybe aren't senior leaders, middle leaders. But I've pulled up from a well-known manufacturer. I won't name them, just to shame them. But for one of those low tray units that we've sort of been discussing, people might not realise you're talking over £300
Yeah,
for a unit
Yeah.
of about 18 trays.
yeah.
And suddenly, to replace one of those, people might start thinking there's another way, I guess.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
don't need
yeah.
them. You absolutely don't need them in your classrooms. They're a waste of time and a waste of space. And once you've cleared your classroom out and you see all the furniture that isn't necessary and isn't really for the children, you actually create all this flow, this space. And so it is easier for the children to get around. And certainly for like wheelchair users,
Yeah.
it gives you so much more carpet space.
And the other thing that I guess, and this is my governor's head on, is that I want to see impact. We're spending money. I want to see
Yeah.
impact. Are you measuring that in some way? How do we see sort of the
Yes.
benefit?
So obviously, like we collect qualitative data and quantitative data all the time in schools, but things like they might be softer to measure, but for our children who have got severe autism, they're having less meltdowns, they're having less crisis times, and actually has a major impact on that child. So it might be that it's impacting a lot on your special needs children, or it's impacting a lot on your children who've experienced trauma, and you might not get that quantitative data, but you've certainly got a lot of qualitative data, and actually quality of life for them is a lot better in school, and school is a lot of much calmer for them.
Can I just add to that as well?
Yeah.
So we've been doing like assessments before and after every makeover and every room change. So we're collating data at the moment where it's, people's assessments and scores, both in, like Claire said, qualitative and quantitative. So we can see the difference in what the children say about their room and also how they score themselves, and the same with teachers. And I think once you see the children in the room, Claire, like, you can just see the difference in the children, can't you? And you can see the difference in the space. It's even just standing in the room without children, everyone's like, oh my God, I understand it now, I get it. This is going to make a massive difference.
And I wanted to switch across to, Shahana first on this one, which is about the age limit, I guess, on this, or the appropriateness, because I think there will be people listening, particularly primary school teachers, who are thinking, yeah, I can see this, I can imagine this in my year R classroom, my year 1 classroom. Maybe secondary school teachers thinking, oh, that's a very primary way of doing it. What would you say about that? Is there a line between this approach, or is there an age limit?
Oh, that's such an interesting question, and also interested in your take on it, actually. So, no, there isn't. However, so it's funny that you have sort of said that maybe for the lower years and primary schools, it would be more like, people would assume it would be more relevant or fit. And actually, our first room is a year 3 room. We've done year 3, 4, 5, and 6 now. And it's all adult furniture. So obviously you choose the style of furniture based on the children. So there are certain bar stools I would choose for year 6 that wouldn't be appropriate for year 3 because they'd be a little bit too small. And, you get to know the furniture. And it would run all the way through high schools perfectly, because again, it's just like setting up a living room or a dining room or a bistro or a cafe. It's kind of a blend of all of those. Actually, where the challenges for me, if I'm very honest, is the lower years. So we're going to be doing all of Claire's school. Claire wants to be the first school that has every classroom done, and that's so exciting. And actually, it's looking now at, well, we can't put an adult-sized armchair an adult-sized dining chair in a year 1 room. So now it's looking at how we can make that appropriate. I get how I'm going to do it for nursery and reception because it's more free flow, but 1 and year 2, that's the one that I've still yet to figure that out. So I'll let you know when I've got the answer there. But generally it runs all the way through the year groups. It's just the chairs and table sizes for those year 1 and year 2s that I need to figure out.
Yeah, the thing that I've really taken away from this conversation, and it's happened to me even today, and I work in a very small social, emotional, mental health unit as part of secondary, and so I'm very lucky in that sense. But where I'm maybe not as lucky, I mean, it's a beautiful new build, but my children love just turning off the strip lighting, and it's all they want to do. They will, whenever possible, we will have the strip lighting will be off, and throughout whole lessons we'll just leave it off. And that is one of the things that I think, I'm going to go back and I'm going to reflect on that and think, why, what is it, and why is it, and what need are we trying to meet by having it off?
Yeah, get some lamps. Get some lamps, get some soft lighting.
Fairy
It will
lights.
make all the difference. Get some fairy lights, whatever you can afford. It will make a massive difference, because that's them communicating with you and saying, this is not working for me and I can't have this in this environment. And we've got to listen.
Yeah, and I think that I find it really interesting, because obviously, as I say, I'm very lucky that I can listen. I'm paid to have time to listen, and time and space and resources to be able to do that. But it must be incredibly hard for teachers, or even middle leaders, or possibly head teachers, kind of fighting through budgets and things. So what I want to do is we're going to pop to the news. It will be 6 minutes, and then when we come back, I'd really like it if you guys could give us sort of some of those things to look out for, sort of tripping points for people if they're going to try and do something like this, and some of those top tips as well. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Lovely stuff. Now, I do need to ask both of you to mute if you can, just so they don't hear us having our cups of tea and such like while the news is going on. And if you are listening now, we'll see you just on the other side of this short break.
Hi, I'm Charlie Burley, the Teacher's Health Coach, and I want to talk to you about the first ever health and wellbeing event for educators, Rewriting Wellbeing. It's a full day dedicated to improving your health as a teacher through looking at your nutrition, movement, mindset, workload and well-being in school. You'll hear from our incredible lineup of speakers including Andrew Cowley, Jen Foster, Kimberly Wilson, Simon Bolger and many more. There'll be talks, workshops and time to network with like-minded colleagues. We'll look after you all day with brunch, lunch and all the refreshments. You'll get to meet our incredible speakers and our amazing team of ambassadors from the education space. It's a non-profit event with all proceeds going to the amazing education charity Ed Support. This isn't one to miss. I look forward to seeing you there on the 22nd of October at Etc. Venues, St Paul's in London. You can search Rewriting Wellbeing on the Eventbrite website to find out more.
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the Department for Education has issued guidance for schools. The period of national mourning will continue until the state funeral, but the guidance makes it clear that schools should remain open during this time. Ofsted reports are paused, but inspections will go ahead. The update suggests that schools may want to consider conducting special activities, holding assemblies, or adapting lessons to commemorate the life of Her Majesty. Whilst no official date has yet been set for the state funeral, many media outlets are suggesting Monday, September the 19th as a possible date. There is also speculation around whether the state funeral proceedings would be classed as a public holiday, something which would affect schools opening. Schools and other education settings across all four of the home nations have been involved in many events recognising the late Queen's 70 years of service to the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, with many media outlets carrying details of how her passing has been acknowledged by young people across all areas. England's Secretary of State for Education, Kit Malthouse, acknowledged Her Majesty's devotion to public service. Northern Ireland's Michelle McKilveen referred to Her Majesty as a champion of education and an impeccable role model for children and young people, and someone who will be missed immeasurably. The last public appearance of the Queen was on Tuesday the 6th of September, when she appointed Liz Truss as Prime Minister. The new Prime Minister made cabinet announcements, including the appointment of Kit Malthouse as Secretary of State for Education. Mr Malthouse replaces James Cleverly in a year that has seen many ministers take up and then leave the role. Mr Malthouse was first elected in 2015 and is the MP for North West Hampshire. His previous experience has been with the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice. He studied politics and economics at Newcastle University and is a qualified chartered accountant. Mr Malthouse is married and has 3 children. After a year of turmoil, Mr Malthouse is likely to need to promote stability as quickly as possible within his department, while also taking steps to address the school funding crisis and issues brought about by further concerns around the cost of living. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello! This week, if you haven't already gone, it's time to return to school. So, what tech advice do I have for you? This episode is aimed more at teachers newer to the profession, but there may also be something for those with more experience here too. Here are my top tips for returning to or starting a new school. First up, put your name on your power lead, especially if your school uses the same laptops for lots of teachers. It's so easy to leave your power lead behind and then find it's been taken by someone thinking it's theirs. When moving between rooms, always close your laptop lid and remove power leads and USB drives. This can be a pain, but impact on a USB drive sticking out while in transit can stop the port working. Same goes for a power port. Modern computers are incredibly tricky to fix if these ports are damaged, and therefore that will be the end of your laptop. If you're using USB drives, start moving into the cloud. If your school hasn't already banned them, they will be considering it due to the increased risk of viruses posed by using them. Always start your information management system as soon as you arrive. This is the software you take your register on. Don't leave it until it's time to take the register. This software updates regularly and can sometimes take a while, especially after a break when technicians have had the time to maintain your school system. Finally, one of my favourite shortcuts. If you don't know this, feel free to let me know I've changed your life. If you organise your internet bookmarks into folders, you can right-click on the folder and select Open All. This will open all of the web pages you'll be using in a lesson, saving you time and also making sure everything is loaded and ready to go. If this has given you food for thought, I'd love to hear from you. As we return to work, why not get in touch at TT Radio 2022, follow us and tell us what you want to know about tech. I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio. Live from Swansea, this is the Twilight Show with Nathan Gynn on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Boridar Pawb, croeso I Abertawe. Hello everyone, welcome to Swansea. Welcome to the Twilight Show with me, Nathan Gynn, on Teachers Talk Radio. Now, we're joined by Headteacher Dr Clare Campbell, who's redesigning her school spaces to be trauma-informed, and Shahan Knight of TPC Therapy, creator of the Therapeutic Classrooms approach. We've been talking trauma-informed classroom design, what's staying in the room, what's going in the skip, and what best supports our vulnerable learners. Now, Claire, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm back with you.
Superb. And Shahana still here?
I am indeed.
Perfect. We have been talking, I should say, for any listeners who've joined us a little bit late, go back, listen to the start of this journey, because, there have been some amazing things that Claire and Shahan have both shared already. And you can find that on ttradio.org/listen back, and you'll find it there, or you'll find it on iTunes, you'll find it on Spotify, Amazon, all of those things. But that's where we started, and we started talking about some of the reasons behind and really describing what a therapeutic or a trauma-informed classroom would look like, might look like. Now, the bit I wanted to get onto, because there will be people listening, they've been inspired, they're wanting to roll into school tomorrow. But if we start off, and we'll start off with the negative side, so we can end on a positive in a little bit later on. But what are the possible things that might trip people up? What barriers and pitfalls are we going to run into? So if we start with Claire, and then we'll go to Shahana afterwards.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing, and the hardest thing for me to get my head around, was that the lack of display, the lack of classroom display. And actually, now that we have these bare classrooms that are, that have got like carefully curated artwork on the wall that is by the children, and it's beautiful artwork, it makes so much sense, and it's so much more striking. Like I said, we're a Catholic school, so we have altars in each classroom, and actually the altar is now like the main focal point, whereas before it was kind of lost in the noise, like 7 different cupboards, backboards, all different colours, and your altar would just get lost, whereas now it's like the main focus, and it's beautiful. So my friend she's a year 5 teacher, I was chatting to her about this approach, and she's obviously been to visit my classroom, and she's seen it for herself. So she's in her classroom, she's kind of taken this approach, and she's just done a display about the Romans, because that's their subject, and actually that display is popping off the wall because it's the only display, and it looks great. She's borrowed a load of Roman costumes and shields and whatever, but actually that's what you want the children to focus on. It's like, this is what we're doing, rather than it get lost in the background noise of like a million laminated shapes and colours and words. So yeah, it's that's probably the hardest thing to get your head around.
The
But
hardest
actually,
thing to get
it's amazing.
And and teachers, did you have any recall from that? Are you finding anyone sort of secretly sticking up a couple of laminated words on the wall or something? How have teachers taken to that?
No, they're loving it because it's just reduced their workload by a mile. So yeah, they're loving it.
And Shahana, what things might people sort of stumble on when they're doing this? I guess the furniture, interests me because that must take, is it really that any chairs will work? Like any,
No.
like go on.
No. Please
Yeah,
don't buy any chairs.
yeah,
No, it is all really purposeful. And it's funny you say that because I know this is a bit of an aside, but because it is so rooted in trauma-informed practice, and because there is a reason for everything we choose for the rooms, we have to be really careful, because obviously I want to inspire as many people as possible to do this. In fact, I hope that this becomes the new way that we approach school classrooms across the whole of the UK. But how we do it is so important. And it is really important to not run out there and be like, I'm so excited, and just buy any chairs, because actually how they look, how they feel, the size of them, the way that they're covered, everything, it all counts. So yeah, I think we need to be really careful with what we choose.
So, I, I guess there is a risk, that we take everything out and then we reclutter possibly
Yeah.
with other stuff.
Yeah, there is. And I think that's why it's important to, be aware of the approach, know why you're doing it, understand the theory behind it. I mean, this isn't just about lovely, beautiful classrooms and changing the furniture. It's about meeting the emotional needs of our children and understanding a little bit about the background of where trauma comes from. What are some of the triggers the children have? If you're looking at children with an insecure attachment, where their relationships, the thing they're struggling with, that bleeds and affects into the school environment. And we've got to understand that to understand why we're not having backboards, why we're not having, so why the chairs aren't hard. Because you could go out and buy hard dining table chairs and they still wouldn't be right. So
Yeah.
we do have to be super careful and remember that there's a whole approach here, and it is about, the comfortability. But I know I can almost guess the next question, and I just want to say that doesn't mean you don't do it. If you are excited and you do want to do it, try and go out and buy upholstered furniture that feels comfortable and that is something you would find around a dining table in a home, where it feels cozy and it feels warm and it feels secure. And if you keep that as your center point, that'll guide you in the right direction.
And Claire, what do your school cleaners think? I guess is the easiest way to ask, because
I love this
classroom
question.
furniture is designed. It's wipe clean. It's it's all easy. How have they taken to it? Is it harder to look after?
No, it's not hard to look after at all and actually the children look after it better. They're
Yeah.
not writing on the tables. They're certainly not writing on the chairs. They're not, they're not swinging on the chairs. And because we got rid of a lot of unnecessary furniture, all those tray beds, that was a lot of extra surfaces to wipe, a lot of extra dusting to do. So actually we've reduced the amount of furniture in the room, so it's actually made life easier. And for the cleaners to be able to get around, with the hoover and whatever, it was cluttered before, whereas now it's open and spacious. And it's amazing how just having those kind of narrow bar, the high bar stools and the narrower desks, like the window desk, the high bar desks, that creates a lot of extra floor space.
Mm.
And you've not got kind of 15 tables and 30 chairs all facing the same direction. It's not like that. It's more like a cafe or a bistro, where you have like round tables and dining tables, and there's a better flow in the room. So it's the cleaners have actually found it easier as well.
And I wonder. Go on.
I was going to say, I would say though, like, we do need to be a bit realistic. They are upholstered furniture chairs. So, a bit of a warm cloth and a wipe down, most things will come out. But you wouldn't want to do a full on art session with the children sat on those chairs. It is about being a little bit careful and a little bit purposeful about how we use them, I think, as well. But generally, they are so easy to wipe down and so easy to clean.
Mm. And I was going to ask Shahan, and I'll ask this to you first, and then we maybe hear some specifics from Claire. But we've talked about the children who, we're hearing, it's working for them, and the staff have brought to it as well, and the cleaners, of course. What about feedback from parents? Because this is going to be something very strange to them. It's certainly not
Yeah.
maybe what their schools were like. What are parents saying about these kind of approaches when you hear back?
I love this question. So I was very lucky enough to do a school recently who invited a parent in, and it was a blind reveal. So we blind revealed it to the children, and all of their faces and expressions were just amazing. I always cry. And then we did it to the teachers, and that was amazing. And then the parents, and their response was just as excited and just as enthusiastic and as invested, even without understanding why. They could just see straight away, this space is so much better for my child. And one of the parents was saying to me, my child's needs I can see are now met in this space. And the things before, the overwhelming room and stuff, now she's going to be able to concentrate more, she's going to be able to listen, she's going to feel comfortable. And the feedback from parents, once the children have been in for like a week or whatever, and they've been able to see the space and see the children's reactions in the space, have said themselves that they wish that every classroom could be like that, and that every classroom for their child could be the same. And we've actually had prospective parents go around schools, stand in our therapeutic classrooms, which at the minute generally are only one room in a school because we've not built that out yet. It takes time. And they've just said, this is amazing. Like, this is the future of education. This is what we need to be doing. I want my child to come to your school because they're in this room that is forward thinking and has their child at the centre of it. And that's what you want as a parent.
And Claire, have you had much feedback from parents?
Yeah, I mean, our parents are massive champions for their children, so they just want their children to be happy. So if their children are going home saying, relaying how much better it is and how excited they are, and certainly the children who are involved in the design of the classroom, they're buzzing about it, so that enthusiasm passes on to the parents. So I've just had really positive feedback and really positive comments, so yeah, it's lovely.
Now, I haven't had a chance to really sort of think this through because I'm trying to work it out in my head. But Claire, you've done a couple of classrooms. Have you had any children go from a trauma-informed classroom back into what would have been sort of that older design of classroom?
No, it's because what we've done is we've started with year six, so
Oh, of
we're
course, yeah.
cascading it down. So that's not happened yet. But yeah, we did when we posted about it on Twitter, and we shared the video and the transformation. We had really, really lovely comments, really positive comments. But one comment asked, said, do you think that you're preparing these children for high school? And my argument is, well, of course we are, but actually it's not the furniture that prepares children for high school, it's the teacher. And nothing has changed. The teachers are still delivering the curriculum, the teachers are still delivering everything that they used to deliver, but it's just what we're doing is giving the children the choices back about where they want to sit and who they want to sit with and how they want to learn. And that is creating more independent learners who will be able to adapt better at high school when they have all the changes that high school brings.
Yeah, and are your secondary school aware of what your year six sort of classroom is like? The
Yes,
school you feed
so
into?
yeah, the head teacher came the other day to do like a talk to the year sixes about the parents' evening. So he has seen firsthand. That's our feed at high school, so he's seen firsthand our classroom, and actually, it's challenging him now to up his game because if our 10 and 11-year-olds can cope with this, then and what my staff, we use that classroom all the time for staff meetings because we used to previously we'd be sitting on uncomfortable plastic chairs, and it's like, teachers would be grumbling sitting there on those chairs for an hour for a staff meeting, and actually we're expecting our children to sit like that all day, every day. Children get uncomfortable too.
Now, I did promise sort of the listeners, and I don't want to shortchange them, that we do some sort of top tips, some top bits of advice, and before the end. Now, I'll go to Shahana first. Now, if someone is, thinking about this, what are the things that you want sort of at the front of their mind, if they're going to be considering this, they're going to go away from the listening to us, say, yeah, I'm really inspired by that. What are sort of some of the top things for them to be thinking about consideration wise, or top tips?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for everybody, if you can't change your furniture, there's still so many things that you can do. So lighting, turn off the strobe lights, get lamps, get fairy lights, get little lanterns with sort of fake lights that have batteries in them, anything you can find. That will instantly calm the room, instantly help children feel more engaged and feel like the room is sort of a comfortable, warm, cozy environment, and will help them learn. The other thing is strip back your backboards. So be brave. I would encourage you to not have them, but if you can't do that, which a lot of schools, a lot of people listening, their school won't have heard it, they might not be, able to do a full room, but just think about it. Maybe put wallpaper on your backboards instead, like a wallpaper you'd find in a house, not a really bright, colourful one, like a grey kind of one, I don't know. And then on that, do you know what I mean? Just a nice muted backboard that's with a wallpaper instead of bright colours, clashing borders, all of those sorts of things. And keep it neutral, so greys, beiges, and then think about your laminated stuff. Do you need all of those vowels and sounds on the wall? You might think you do, but do the children use them? Do they look at them? Can you transfer that onto a laminated sheet or in a book? Lots of our teachers are taking what's on their boards and putting them on the iPads because the children use the iPads every day, or in a learning book that they go and grab off the bookcase and then get when they need it. So does it have to be on the wall? So have a think about that. Try and create a colour scheme. If you do have name drawers, what are they called? If you have drawers, if you do have to have backboards, marry it up. Decide on a theme. Can you have like a beigey grey kind of ivory green colour going on? Have some ivy on your backboards or some fairy lights on there, your wallpaper. Maybe put some positive quotes in frames on some of those backboards so it's not just work. Create a photo wall. So you've got the children in the room. In all, like, let's say you've got 30 children, have 30 frames all lined up on a wall instead of a backboard, make the pictures black and white so they're nice and muted, but the children can see themselves in their own space, they can feel like they belong there, creates a sense of togetherness and creates a sense of community and safety again in the room. Those things are so powerful. And get plants in there as well. That's the last thing I'd say. Not real ones by any means, because we'd just kill them all, but get some fake plants. IKEA is amazing. £5 a plant. Pop them on the desks, in the middle of the desk. Pop them on your windowsills. It instantly makes a difference.
I have to say, I'm a massive fan of fake. I have had fake plants in my rooms, or sometimes real plants, but mainly fake plants in my rooms ever since I've been a teacher. And I don't know what it is. I swear by them. Every time I see a fake plastic plant on offer in, whether it be the middle aisle of some of those supermarkets or wherever, then I always pick it up because it does make a difference. Now, Claire, any top tips from you?
I would say use real plants and try not to kill them because I'm all about bringing the outdoors indoors. So,
Yeah.
I think Shahan has nailed it really. I think it's about, can you create soft furnishing stuff, soft spaces? I know that reading is the absolute key to the rest of the curriculum. So make sure that your reading area is inviting. Your bookcases have beautiful books on that are going to invite children to pick them up. So get rid of those tatty books and the ones that from the 1960s, 1950s that are really out of date. Make sure the children can see themselves in the books they're reading, in the stories they're reading. So I want to see diversity, I want to see equality, I want to see lots of different families, because it's not 2.4 children in a family with a mum and dad anymore in our schools. We want to see books that have got two dads, two mums, single parents, looked after children raised by their grandparents. We should have a variety of story, and your book areas are real. It should be a real refuge in your classroom. Every classroom should have that sanctuary where children can just choose a book for pleasure and become a lifelong reader.
And I wanted just to shine a light on something that you said earlier, which was, I have said in my intros about, what's going in the skip, but you took a different approach, and I thought that was really powerful, about what you can do with some of the furniture that you maybe don't use anymore. Was there a name of an organisation you mentioned then?
Yes, please, everybody jot this down. It's called FEW, FEW, Furniture Education Worldwide. They're a Burnley charity. You can find them on Facebook. And yeah, they'll come and collect any kind of educational furniture that you no longer need. And it goes to places like the Gambia, Ethiopia. They've got links with schools. They've set up their own schools. And yeah, the guys are great. They'll send you photos of your furniture in, having a new lease of life in a developing country. So nothing is going to waste, nothing is going to landfill. And stop laminating. Teachers, stop laminating. You're ruining the planet. We don't need anything laminated anymore.
Yeah, and it will save you money. Those pouches are not cheap. I once totaled up when I was working as a deputy head, and we were talking about displays at the time, and I said, people were doing amazing displays, and some of them really did have power, and I thought as features in certain parts of the school, amazing, but I said, it's £40 a roll, and you've used 2 rolls, and the backing paper is this, and there's maybe like a £50 worth of laminating go on there. So there is a cost involved in everything,
Massive.
I think.
Yeah.
Now there will be people listening. As I say, inspired. This is kind of the final part. We're coming very close to the end of the show, but I want to give that kind of Dragon's Den pitch. Let's put some words in their mouth. So if someone is storming into their head teacher tomorrow morning, maybe not storming, maybe just sort of casually rolling in to their head teacher to say, I'd like to do this. What sort of, information, what sort of messages should they be trying to get across? We'll start with Shahana. What am I going to say?
You first show them a picture, because that, I think, is the most powerful thing here. I've learned very quickly that the photograph of the room says a lot. So first show a picture of a room. You can find them on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere that me and Claire are. And then I would say this will help all of the children with their emotional health and mental health and their well-being. And it's the future. It's something that's been outdated. Why are we making our children sit on plastic chairs when they're uncomfortable and they tell us they're uncomfortable? We need to start listening to their needs and stop telling them off when they don't fit what we think they should be doing. And say, I want my room to feel calm. I want it to feel like a safe place for my children to come and work, where they can come every day and escape the world that they might live in out there. Say, some of these children don't have environments at home that do feel safe, that are nurturing, that are cosy and warm. We should be giving them that opportunity to experience that in school so that they've had that. And I really want to do that in my room.
Powerful. You've sold me. Now, Claire, what were the kind of things that would persuade you as a head teacher? Obviously, you're already on the side of what kind of things would you want to say?
I think, it's 2022. The whole country is coming out of a very traumatic time, and it's time that our schools respond to that. Things are very different in this, with this ABC time. We've got austerity, we've got Brexit, we've got COVID, and we need to respond to our children. We need to listen to what they're saying to us, and sometimes children's actions kind of speak for the unspeakable. So if our children have been through trauma and they don't know how to express it in their language, they're going to express it in their behaviour, and that's why we're getting school refusers. That's why we're getting children at crisis, children having meltdowns. Their behaviour speaks louder than words, and it's time to calm our classrooms down.
Yeah, really, a really powerful kind of message, I think there, and certainly, I'm going to be taking this away and going into school, kind of looking in my class with kind of fresh eyes. I think about, what it is about the environment inside the room, and also I think that welcoming bit as they come in as well. I've really taken away, actually when they come in to my building, what is that like? Is it, is it welcoming? So I find that really powerful. Now, I do need to just give a shout out. If you are listening live, you're in the studio now, straight after this show, you can go on Twitter, on Twitter Spaces. Woody Danan is doing a show in the Spaces there, supporting new starters. You'll be able to listen live. If you're listening back to this as a podcast, this will be available on Amazon, on iTunes, on our website, ttradio.org/listenback, and Woody Show as well. You'll be able to find on Twitter for at least 30 days in the spaces on Twitter. So all of those things to look forward to and listen back to if you've only joined us at the end. Now, I should say, really, if you are joining us, I've been joined by Dr. Clare Campbell, who's been redesigning her school spaces to be trauma-informed. And I've been joined by Shahan Knight of TPC Therapy, the creator of the therapeutic classrooms approach. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys.
Oh, thank
It's been
you.
great.
Oh no, it's been a real pleasure, and hopefully people have got something there that they can take away, really think about. Now, if they want to reach out to either of you, do you just want to let them know sort of your preferred sort of means of communication, or you can of course say please don't. But Claire, do you want to go first? If people are kind of want to look at some of those photos of your school, how can they find you?
Sure. So you can find me at Clare Campbell 7, and I'm on Twitter, or my school is at St Charles RC Pri 1 on
Fantastic.
Twitter as well.
And Shahana, how can they get in touch?
So mine's at Shahana_TPC, or they can go to the website www.tpctherapy.co.uk to learn more and read every magazine article I've ever published about it and catch up.
Fantastic. I'll be heading straight over after this, getting some more information. And I do apologise to Claire for my love of plastic plants. It's not a nature thing. It's a nurture thing. I lack the skills to keep them alive, unfortunately. And I'm trying to bring that outdoors indoors, just in a way that actually survives. Now, it is time for us to go, and I will say good night. I'm here in South Wales, so I do say Nostar, which is good night in Welsh. So and Nostar to both of you, and good night.
Good night. God bless.
Night. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on. And as I say, listeners, if you are looking to find us at TT Radio 2022 on Twitter, on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook, and of course at our website, ttradio.org. Nostar, good night.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.